Good evening, everyone. How many of you are sleeping? Okay, one table is not sleeping, I know. And anyone else? Can we stand up for a minute? We'll not do any exercise, don't worry. But I think so we should all clap for our soldiers at the border, right? What they have done. We are here because they were able to get Pakistan at its place, right? So, with the bottom of heart, I think so. We have done a commendable job, and right from many years, the way we have developed our defense forces and everything around that, it has been commendable. And keeping that in mind, some of the topic that I would be touching upon today is around that, right? Thank you for standing up. Please have your seats. Okay. So, what does data security mean? Data security always was confused by the term DLP, data loss prevention, but it's way beyond that, right? Because when we say a data security, it does not only means when the data is moving out, then you have to protect. But when the data is inside, getting created, who is making changes, what changes were made, right? At the wire speed, these changes are happening when the insider are trying to change this, right? So keeping that in mind, what Forcepoint has been doing, and the many of the industry colleagues and the peers or the organizations are trying to achieve out of it. Okay, so we have been talking that the data has been the oil and many other stuff, right? It is the currency, right? Because whatever we have, if our data is lost, we are nowhere, right? Because if our digital presence is changed, right, it doesn't make any sense to have anything around us, right? Because we are defined by our data that we have, right? If I have a PII information about myself, that is what is defining myself, right? And this data is residing where? It's residing everywhere. And in today's world, it's changing rapidly. Okay, so what's the countries or globally what's happening? There are multiple regulations which are coming year after year, year after year. Right now, close to 137 countries have already come up with some kind of a regulations. It could be around data, it could be around privacy, but there is some form of regulations which are controlling a data or maybe some form of the access governance as well, right? But what's happening around the data, right? It's the breaches that are happening day after day. So what we are understanding, the threats or the, I would say, the solutions that we are already having, right, are becoming incapable or are always a cat and mouse game, right? Who is winning, who is losing, right? That kind of stuff is always happening. So data attacks are continuous. How we can proactively look at those is what we will be discussing. So what Forcepoint is doing in this space, if you look at any global regulation, right, it is revolving around these points, right? Be it be any kind of a framework, be it be the DPDP Act, which has been of prime focus in last couple of years. So what we are talking about is how and what data is getting already created, which is there, and then a new data which is getting created as we are speaking, right? So everything needs to be discovered, identified, or inventarized, right? So once that is done, we should be able to understand what type of data it is. Simply for a human mind to read that particular data, it's not possible. It has to have some kind of a contextual information, whether visible or not visible, right? Both side of things should be looked upon. It could be human readable, or it could be also about how the systems are understanding that particular data. Once that data is classified, okay, whatever I mentioned is the part of a classification of that data. It could be labeling of a data, it could be a visual representation of the data, it could be in any form, but it is a classification that is specific to a particular organization, right? Next is, you may have tens and tons of files, thousands and thousands of files in your mobile devices. But do you know all the files? No. Are all files critical in nature? No. How do we really make sure what is the right prioritization for our companies, for our data, right? The prioritization phase is very critical in any data security. It is not only about the tools, it's about the visualization of that particular data, how it's available, in what form it's available, right? Next is the remediation phase, right? It's not about I have prioritized certain data or I have identified certain data. It's about how I can prioritize a certain amount of data which is available and then also take actions on that. Actions of not blocking it, but even taking out that particular data from a location where it should not be, right? That's the remediation phase and ultimately a protect phase. And this should not only happen at one, I would say, one data source. It has to happen at every data source, right? So the length and breadth of the data sources should be covered. Where those data sources are residing, that is also very important, right? It could be on-prem, it could be cloud, it could be in hybrid in nature, because today our data are residing at multiple places. It's not only in your data center, it's in the cloud, right? In someone else's data center, while we call it, it's our tenant, but someone else's data center. So how we can make sure that the protection layer can also be met? Keeping this entire process of discover, classify, and then prioritizing, remediation, and protect, this has to be a continuous process. It cannot be a one-time process. It has to continuously be monitored at every stage. Every stage means within every department and as an organization as a whole, and then monitoring also in form of, if I as a user who is privileged enough to do certain actions, how, if I become a rogue employee of the organization, how dynamically my risk can be changed and my access can be curtailed, right? So monitoring is in that phase as well. So we all know when we talk about data security, there are three things, right? The first thing is data at rest, right? Data at rest, data in use, and data in motion. Forcepoint cover all these phases, right? And we have different solution points for that. It could be, it is available as different solution. It's available as one single platform doing all these jobs. It's no more silos in different consoles. It's one single, I would say, console, one single agent doing all the job for you. Now, what does each of these means, right? Is the data at rest. Forcepoint data security posture management helps you to do a complete discovery of your data, irrespective of its location. It could be on-prem, it could be hybrid in nature, it could be public cloud, it could be any infrastructures, right? It could be any cloud where we can go and scan your repositories, right? And then give you a visualization of what that particular data is all about, right? And not only that, we do a very important stuff over here is, which is identification of dark data by the concept called as ROT, redundant, outdated, and trivial. We identify how many copies of data is redundant in your organization. Because if we are not identifying the redundant copies of the data, that means you have a very confidential document which is lying at 10 different places. That means your attack surface area is humongous, right? That is from a security standpoint. Second, the amount of money that you're spending in keeping that data in your storages, right? You're paying some money around it. So the cost side of things also come into the picture. So we are doing complete ROT analysis of that particular data. Next is data in, I would say, use. Basically, if I as a user created a file, I was the owner of that particular file, I made a change. It is that means I am the owner. But if in the repository someone else is making a change to that particular file, and that is not visible, because in the first stage when you're doing a discovery, you discovered it. But if something is happening in between, right, before it's being sent out or it is going in the form of a data in motion, someone made some changes, right? That's where the data exfiltration attempts happen. So we track that change called as data detection and response. Right? And last but not the least, we all know many of you are already using data loss prevention, which is for data in motion. So over the years, we had enterprise DLP solution, which was on-prem, which has a lot of controls, right? What Forcepoint has now done, it has brought all its solutions into one single platform, cloud delivered, called as Forcepoint Data Security Cloud. Okay, and I'll give you a glimpse of that particular platform as well. How does it looks like, and in terms of what all capabilities it has, right? So I'll move to the next slide, which talks about AI. We have been talking about AI in the last couple of sessions as well, but AI has a double-edged sword, right? Because if used properly, it could be very good, but if not used properly, it could be very dangerous as well. Because as a user, I may not be that intelligent to understand that what that particular LLM is taking from me when I'm putting certain prompts, right? What data I am leaking unintentionally or intentionally. So what Forcepoint has done, we have created a AI mesh. Basically, it's a patented technology where we are using SLMs, which are more faster and more accurate in understanding the type of data and what's the classification inside that particular data as well. We are supplying positive and the negative samples. We are providing soft signals, hard signals to rightly understand what data is there, right? And then putting a classification to it. And we do it both at the endpoint layer as well as any of the data storages that we support, right? Majority of all them, all the data sources are supported. Okay, this is what I was explaining what happens, right? If there's a data which you have done a full scan about it, maybe in your repositories, in the middle, someone is changing. There's a new file. There's a new update to a file. Someone is making any changes. So we can help you to track those changes as well and give you complete visibility of those changes as well, so that once the file that you have created and the file which is being moving out, what's the difference? So we are looking at the complete lineage of the file, who had the access, what changes were made, how it was changed, what classification also changed over the period of time for a particular file. Now, as I mentioned, that gone are the days where you can only trust a person and say, okay, he is allowed to do everything, right? So when you create a policy and say, okay, go and block this particular user for this particular content, right? But you allow another user that he's allowed to send. But over the period of time, the risk of a user has changed, right? We can dynamically assess that risk. We all know about indicators of compromise, but what we are talking now is indicators of behavior. If Ayush is behaving in a certain different way today, that means there's something changed. Can I start auditing his activities? Okay, over the period of time, my risk is increasing. Can I put certain restrictive controls? Can I ask for justifications? Right, so these are all can be done dynamically at the back end without the involvement of anyone in SOC monitoring this. Right, it all happens at the dynamically. So what we are doing, right? We are doing 4 things in total, right? We are trying to manage the access, right? In terms of who is allowed to do what. Second is blocking the uploads. When I say block does not mean in literal sense stopping the content. Block in terms of the actions that you want to take on particular type of transaction. Next is what kind of a data control usage you want, right? Whether you want to put a confirm feature for a particular action, or you don't want that data to go out, or you want to, I would say, level it up and ask for his superior to give a consent that this data is allowed to be sent out from that particular user, and then doing a continuous monitoring of this process. So we talked about around data. I just wanted to introduce everyone. We have been doing network security from a very long time, and we have a cloud native support for delivering next generation firewall, SD-WAN, and your IPS functionalities directly from cloud as well, right? And we have on-prem solutions also around network security in case anyone is interested. Now, as I was talking about, we have been doing a lot of work at the back end, right? This is what we have launched last week at the RSA, is Forcepoint Data Security Cloud. I'll just give you a glimpse of it. This is how, if you look at the this side, it gives you all the technologies that Forcepoint has, right? I'll put one more, and if you drill down, you'll see all the controls which are available within this, I would say, one single console which can do all these things for you, whatever we have spoken till now. So that's what I wanted to cover today. Thank you for your time.